Hi, my name is Michael, and I'm here with StreamerSquare doing a product review, and today we're going to be reviewing the GoXLR by TC Helicon. Big thanks to TC Helicon for actually sending us one of these products, because I've had my eye on this for quite a long time, and it's super cool of them to just send us one of them to review. Don't worry, in no shape or form is it going to reflect sort of how I review the product. They're just super cool like that. I actually do have to send it back anyways, so sad face. Yeah, we're going to be doing a deep dive on this product, and we're going to be running down over everything from hardware to software, just so you can get an idea of whether or not it's worth it for you. It sells worldwide for about $400 US on Amazon and other select retailers, so it's sort of good to have an idea of whether or not it's worth it for you before dropping all that money, especially if you're like me and you're Canadian, because it's a little bit more pricey if you're Canadian. If you prefer written reviews, don't worry, I'll be getting a written review up on StreamerSquare.com after this video is uploaded, so if you prefer just reading through reviews and just getting sort of the bullet points, I will be doing that afterwards, so keep your eye on StreamerSquare.com for that. So yeah, I'll go over the hardware and software and everything in between, as well as my final thoughts at the end. This piece of equipment has a crap ton of features, so this video might be on the longer side, and I know you don't have all the time in the world, so I'll be putting timestamps here, and here, sort of cutting up the video into the major sections of this review, just in case you're only interested in a certain thing. There's that. Additionally, all audio in this review is being recorded with the GoXLR, as well as an Audio-Technica AT2035 XLR microphone. I have no EQ applied, but I do have a noise gate, compression, and a slight de-esser applied using the GoXLR. Last but not least, TC Helicon also sent us one of these to check out. This is the GoXLR Mini, and this is actually slated to be released sometime in November. And even at the time of this recording, it should be almost November. So definitely keep your eye on that if you're interested in the mini version. We are going to be doing a separate video for that, as well as I'll do a slight comparison video or a slight comparison talk discussion, whatever, in that video, just in case you're wondering what the difference is between the two. So yeah, we'll be doing a quick rundown of that, so make sure to subscribe and stay tuned. So for those that are unfamiliar with what the GoXLR is, this thing is an all-in-one audio station catered towards streamers. What that means is you won't need a ton of different equipment or software to get some really high quality sounding audio. It also comes chock full of different features that can sort of give you a little bit of, a little bit more of an experience for your streams with things such as a sampler, as well as voice effects that you can apply. Additionally, the GoXLR is meant for a wide range of people, ranging from, people who are new to XLR setups that maybe just want to jump in, as well as people like myself who have been using XLR setups for a while, but maybe wanting something a bit more, albeit with less hassle. For comparison, I started my sort of XLR journey with a Focusrite Scarlett Solo audio interface. That's a mouthful. Before jumping onto a Yamaha AG103 mixer, and then of course finally settling on the GoXLR. And even after sending this review copy back, I will definitely be getting my own. So hardware-wise, this thing is gorgeous. I mean, I'm really glad they went with, it's just something simple and sleek rather than sort of, with a lot of these, I guess, gamer products or streamer products, sometimes they can go a little bit crazy with the theme of it, but I'm really glad TC Helicon kept it simple, because it's just black, something easy. It goes great with any stream setup. Additionally, since all the lighting and stuff like that is customizable, it's gonna look great no matter where it sits on your desk. And speaking of desks, mine's a little small, so I was a little bit worried size-wise, as if it was even gonna fit on my desk with, my monitors and all that stuff. But I was pleasantly surprised it did. It's really compact considering all the stuff they have jammed in here. It's quite a feat they've done in putting so much into this form factor. It's also important to note that all of their inner hardware is actually parts that they use in their other audio products, like the stuff they use for professional live setups for their singers and performers, which is pretty damn cool. And for those interested, I'll be putting up an image of the exact specifications. If you're sort of more on the technical mumbo jumbo side of things and you're more interested in that, I'll put an image for that right now. But let's take a look at the back first, and we can go through all of the inputs and outputs. So taking a look at the back of the GoXLR, you can see all of the different inputs and outputs. On the far left is your XLR input. This is where your XLR microphone is going to be connected. Pretty straightforward. Next to that is the line in, which is used if you have any external devices, such as a phone, a tablet, a laptop, what have you, that you'd like to plug in. After that is your mic in, where a microphone from something like a gaming headset can be used. If you have headphones or earbuds, you can also plug those in next to that. Some headphones like mine, which are the Sennheiser 599s, are naturally 1/4 inch connectors, 1/4 inch connectors. So if you do have something like that, you're going to need a 3.5 millimeter adapter. Luckily, mine did come with one, so make sure you check that ahead of time. Next to that is the line-out jack, which will send out an exact copy of your broadcast stream audio, which you can output to a second PC or other things such as external speakers. Lastly, you have your USB port to connect to your PC and also a power port for the DC power supply. If you're wanting to connect to something like a gaming console to the GoXLR, there's also an optical port as well. Oh, and last but not least, in the middle of the GoXLR on the underside, there's a little bit of a small opening and a small crevice which can be used to route cables through if need be. If you have something that has to come from the front of the GoXLR and you still want to plug it in, it sort of gives it an easy way to do that. So flipping it over, you can see all the different fancy buttons and knobs you'll be playing around with for hours on end. The GoXLR is sectioned off quite nicely into 4 different sections. First, on the left, you have your mixer, which will control the volume of specific audio outputs. While in the software, you have full control over all of the audio inputs and outputs. There's only 4 fader bars, so your best bet is to, of course, set those things that you'll want easy access to, which is pretty straightforward, and we'll get into sort of the software and all that stuff later. All of the fader slots are mechanized as well, and hitting the mute button on any of them will quickly slide the bar down to 0. Hitting it again will result in the knob shooting back up to its original position, and it does flip these around a bunch when you do first plug in the GoXLR, which actually freaked the hell out of me. So I thought it was like a ghost or something, I don't know. At the top of each fader bar are small screens which you can use to customize with your own images, titles, and lighting. The top right of the GoXLR hosts the effects portion. This houses all the different vocal effects that you can apply to your voice. On the left are 6 different presets you can have, considering you have an unlimited amount of profiles that you can have with the GoXLR. With 6 presets per profile, you have quite an arsenal of voice effects on hand, albeit to actually switch between profiles will take a little bit of fiddling around with. Underneath the effects is the sampler. With a touch of a button, you can reproduce sound samples that you've recorded live from your microphone and computer, or play something that you've preloaded into the sampler. You can have up to 4 different sample sets saved to 3 different presets, resulting in 12 sample sets per profile. And last but not least, to the bottom right are the button, the bleep button, and the push to mute button, which is dubbed the cough button. Holding down the buttons allows you to bleep yourself or mute yourself as long as the button is held down. Now, just remember that it's not a push to mute. It's a hold to mute. So you do have to hold the button down to actually mute yourself. So in terms of the hardware and sort of how it looks, how it feels, and all sort of the physical aspects of it, this thing is pretty great. I mean, it has everything that you need just sort of laid out in front of you and ready to play around with. Just sort of some minor things. The cords are quite long, which is really, really nice for me. I have a desk that can actually move into a streaming, not a streaming. I have a desk that can go into a standing mode. So it was really nice to know that the cords were long enough where when I do put it into standing mode, it doesn't just suddenly rip the GoXLR off my desk. So that was nice. Additionally, the bottom of the GoXLR has some nice rubber padding to prevent sliding around, depending on what surface that you have, it on, which is good. In terms of the knobs and the buttons and the faders, they're just all excellent quality. There was no issues that I had personally with it. I do like how the knobs actually were they're not like super tough, but they were definitely tougher. They weren't loose knobs that you turned for the effects portion, which I really like. I do like how you can make sort of more minute movements with it. Just personal preference thing, maybe, I don't know. Additionally, the faders, they just move up and down. They're all mechanical as well. I am sort of curious as to sort of, I mean, you're not going to be moving the faders down a bunch, but I am sort of curious as to, like, I guess the lifetime of sort of the mechanized parts of the faders, and whether or not they have sort of a certain life cycle. One nice thing about the buttons as well, especially for the larger buttons, I have used certain products that have larger rubber buttons where sometimes you push the side of it and it doesn't actually work. You have to like make sure you're pushing on the center of it. I'm really glad that the buttons on this, like for the FX button, you know, the hold to mute button and the sampler buttons, the larger buttons on the GoXLR, doesn't matter where you push on them. They're gonna go off. They're gonna activate, which is awesome. It's really, really nice that that's there. And in terms of the innards, I am pretty impressed with the quality of just what they've put into here. Even though it is a $400 piece of equipment, considering all of the different features that this thing comes with, generally when you find like higher end like streaming or gaming products, they'll usually add a bunch of features. But they'll, you know, to add those features, they'll generally have to cut back on stuff, and they'll usually cut back on the stuff that actually matters. It's nice to know that TC Helicon actually didn't do that here. They do have a crap ton of features in this thing, but they still use the part that they have put with like their professional grade audio equipment that they use for, you know, live performances and stuff like that. Like the audio quality is really, really good here. Additionally, considering everything is done in the box, everything is done on the DSP, which is the digital signal processor. It removes, you know, a lot of issues that you would run into if you were going to be doing a lot of the effects and processing and stuff like that on software. So things like, you know, latency time, and, you know, CPU usage, all of that is lowered or eliminated, as well as just having a higher quality, which is awesome. Also, for those who are using dynamic microphones, you'll be really, really glad to know that it comes with a lot of power behind it. The GoXLR comes with 72 dBs of gain, which is pretty insane. And, you know, I don't have a dynamic microphone, so I couldn't test it or anything like that. But as far as I can tell, it's pretty clean gain. Of course, it's just going to depend on your environment and stuff like that as well. And your mileage may vary. But just the fact that it comes with that much gain is really, really good for dynamic microphone users. Especially considering I have heard a lot of stories and read about a lot of people who aren't really tech savvy or audio savvy. And they'll buy a dynamic microphone and they won't... And they'll plug it in and they'll get ready and they'll realize they've pumped up their gain fully and they're still really, really quiet. That's some of the issues that you can find with dynamic microphones, and you'll usually have to rely on something like a cloud lifter. And the cloud lifter is just this little piece of equipment that slots in between your microphone and your audio interface or mixer, and it just straight up applies 20 dB of clean gain. It just bumps it up 20 dB. So that can help in those situations, but it's really nice to know they've just put so much power behind this thing that you just don't have to rely on that. Even if you know, when you don't have a cloud lifter, you can just pump up the gain. Like when I was setting up my condenser microphone, I'm only using 22 dBs of that gain, which is, yeah, not much, and it's still quite loud, as you can tell. So it's nice to know that if I was using a dynamic microphone, I could just pump that up and be good to go. And on the other hand, if you're using a condenser microphone like myself, condenser microphones have the other issue where it needs phantom power, the 48 volts of phantom power. A lot of mixers will generally have like an explicit button that you push on to, you know, power on and power off the phantom power. The GoXLR doesn't have that, but it does have it in the software. But they made it really new user friendly, where you just have to choose what type of microphone you have, and it'll just fix that, you know, for you automatically. So once you set up your microphone, you'll have 3 different choices. You can choose if you have a dynamic microphone, a condenser microphone, or a 3.5 millimeter microphone. And in the condenser microphone section, it'll have in brackets, it'll say plus 48V for the phantom power. And so if you choose dynamic microphone, it'll just automatically shut that off in the hardware. And of course, if you choose condenser microphone, it'll just automatically turn on the phantom power for you. And that's really, really awesome. That just makes it so you don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. Whereas, people like myself, I had to make sure to do a little bit of research before I bought my previous mixers and microphones to just make sure those kinds of issues weren't going to be present. But TC Helicon's just done a great job in making this really just out of the box friendly for people who are not maybe super well versed in audio equipment. So in terms of stuff I didn't like or I was disappointed with, I'll be honest, there wasn't really too much. You gotta credit where credit's due. TC Helicon has done a really great job in designing this piece of equipment. And I'm really glad they were able to put in, high grade audio parts in it without breaking the bank, in addition to actually having those features, those extra features like the voice effects and all that stuff. Because again, like I said before, like with these higher end streamer or gaming products, they'll usually cut back on what matters to be able to fit in extra features and dazzle and frazzle and all that stuff to attract people to buy them. I'm glad TC Helicon has both, which is super, super cool. Now there's a couple of things that I was a little bit disappointed with or had issues with, I guess. I was a little bit disappointed that there's no 1/4-inch jack for my headphones. That is what my headphone jack is naturally. So it would have been a little bit disheartening if I got this product and I either lost or I didn't have a 3.5 millimeter adapter. I'm sure that's due to size concerns and stuff like that. They definitely have packed a lot of stuff into this box. So it doesn't really surprise me, but that's a little bit of a disappointment on my end. But it's one of those things where if you were to look up this product, you could probably easily research yourself that it wouldn't have that. So you could sort of prepare ahead of time, but just one of the minor things. Additionally, in terms of the screens above the faders, I would have liked to actually have it on a little bit more of an incline, or at least have something maybe underneath the GoXLR where you can maybe prop it up a little bit more so there is more of an incline. Just because from where I'm sitting and from where the GoXLR is on my desk, it's sort of a little bit further to the back behind my keyboard. And when I'm sitting down, and unless I'm leaning over the GoXLR and sort of viewing it from a higher angle, depending on the color choice you have customized for it, for the little screens above the faders, you can't really see the images or the text, which is a little bit of a minor thing for me. Obviously, it doesn't have anything to do with the functionality of it or how the quality of audio it has. But that's just one of those things that would have been nice. So yeah, those are pretty much my only two major concerns, which is pretty damn good considering they're mostly personal preference stuff. But yeah, considering how much they have to pack into this piece of equipment, I'm not really surprised some things were cut like that or what have you. But yeah, overall, just a lot of good stuff in it, and I had no qualms or issues with how it felt. But yeah, let's take a look at the software then. All right, we have the GoXLR software all booted up and ready to go. This is going to be where all the magic happens, and it's going to be where you're spending most of your time when you're playing around with it and customizing it, of course. Again, like I mentioned before, we're going to be doing things at a very basic level. I'm not going to be deep diving in anything. I will be doing those in separate videos and separate tutorial videos to help you get started. So make sure to subscribe to stay tuned for that. In the top left is going to be your profiles, samples, and preset section. This is essentially just your library section. It's going to house all of your different things, your profiles, your samples, and your presets. Pretty straightforward. Profiles, you can have a bunch of different things going on, whether it be copying your profile, saving the active profile, and you can also make a new profile with default settings if you so choose, and also, of course, delete them from here. In the samples tab, it's going to house all of your different samples. Now, you can actually open up in all of the tabs in the samples, presets, and profiles tab. You can click in this little gear icon, and it'll actually open up the containing folder. So you can make new folders or what have you. So if I wanted to make a folder that says fart noises, Yeah, there we go. See it in real time. It pops up really straightforward, so I can put all my fart noises in there, and when I'm ready to stream, I can of course I don't have any recorded right now, but I can. You can open that folder from here, and then when you're in your sampler tab, you can just drag and drop samples to actually assign them to the GoXLR, which is really really easy, really straightforward. And you can also, if you want, you can click on them and play them in this window, just in case you want to do that ahead of time. Then you have a presets tab, which sort of works similar to the sampler one, except it's going to work for the presets section. So you can drag and drop presets into here. Very straightforward, so not much to talk about there. So to the right of the library, you have your digital viewer of the GoXLR. This is almost like a mirrored version of the physical GoXLR. So for example, if I either use a fader and change the volume on stuff there, or use the knob and adjust effects from the physical version, it'll actually be reflected in the software, which is really cool. I don't think it's really necessary, but it is sort of a nice way to just get a quick view while you're playing around with the settings, to see how it's reflected on the GoXLR, especially when it comes down to like the lighting and the customizing of how it looks, rather than having to always glance over to your physical GoXLR. You can also, the best part about this thing is being able to just click in each different section, and quickly switch to that portion in the software. This is really helpful, just mainly because of how freaking much there is in this software. It is nice to be able to go through here rather than dive into all these different tabs. It makes it so you don't have to search around a little bit, just more of an efficiency thing. And then in the bottom section of the software is going to be your configuration portion of your software, which is going to be, of course, the main area that you're going to be playing around with stuff in. It just allows you to change all your settings here, and all your customizing is going to be done here as well. The first tab that you're going to be encountering is going to be your microphone tab. You will be having a microphone setup screen when you first start, but if you do want to change your microphone setup settings, you can just click the button here, or you can also go to your system tab, and there's also a mic setup thing there as well. And this is pretty straightforward. Like I mentioned before, they've made it really easy for people who aren't super audio savvy or tech savvy to set up their microphone, and just start playing around with stuff, because this is pretty much the only setup you have. So you have your different microphone types, whether it be dynamic, condenser, or 3.5 millimeter. You have your different gain that you can control from here to sort of get a proper volume level. Now, the cool thing as well, when I was playing around with this, I was playing around with it, and then I noticed that even if I was pumping up my gain quite a bit, my voice actually still sounded pretty good. It wasn't super distorted like it normally would be when you pump up the gain. Then I did a little bit of digging, and I found out they actually do have I think it's I don't know if it's a soft limiter. I think it's a soft limiter or a hard limiter. I can't remember. It's a limiter of some sort, but they have a limiter of some sort actually built directly into the GoXLR, and this is really awesome that they have that done. Mainly because one of the biggest issues people have with audio, especially newer streamers, of course, is maybe their microphone is really quiet or something, and so they just pump up the gain, and they think that's just making the volume better, but in reality, it's just blowing out their microphone and making them sound terrible. This actually helps prevent a little bit of that. Obviously, you still don't want to use a lot of gain, but it is nice to know there is sort of a fail-safe that if you do use a little bit more gain than you should be using, your microphone still will sound at least all right. You still want to obviously play around with it and make sure things sound to the best of your ability, but fail safes are nice to sort of, so you don't just pop and clip and all that good stuff, or sorry, not all that good stuff, all that bad stuff. So it's pretty cool that they have that in there. And then, of course, your microphone filters are down here as well. Your noise gate, your equalizer, your compressor, and your de-esser. We'll be going into all of those in deeper detail, so don't worry. The one thing to note, however, is anytime you see this little arrow, you can actually open it up, and it'll have an advanced section or advanced viewing of that. So not only does it do let you view additional features, it sort of just changes it entirely. So you have just a lot more control over how those different effects work, which is really good. I definitely would recommend people to use the advanced ones as much as possible, even if you do have to go online and look a little bit about how they work. It is good to know how these things work, but being able to for the noise gate, for example, is the best example I have. Is that the simple version of it doesn't sound very good. It's very, very harsh. There's not really anything you can control about it except just how much noise gate is applied. When you open up to the advanced section, you have a lot more control over, how much the gate is opening, how long it's opening for, how fast it closes, and then that's just going to provide you with just a much better audio overall once you actually get all that stuff sorted out. Like I said, it's going to have a little bit more of an upfront time in learning all this stuff, but your viewers will, and yourself especially, will appreciate it down the road. And the same goes for the equalizer and compressor. The de-esser does not have any advanced settings, but you don't really need them with the de-esser. The de-esser is essentially just reducing your S noises and your sibilants, which can be a little bit of an issue for certain people. I don't believe it's an issue for me from what I've noticed, but it's mainly just with how you speak. Some people's S noises are really, really harsh, and that's essentially sibilants, and this sort of reduces a little bit of that. So if I go S, you can actually hear it work in real time. So it actually does a really, really good job. I'm really glad they have this. I have noticed some people who, especially when they have their microphone volume quite high and they're speaking really close to the microphone, it definitely enhances the sibilants. And for some people, if their S noises are really high pitched and whistling, that can actually hurt some people's ears like myself. So it's really, really cool to have something like this. Next up is going to be your mixer tab. This is going to be where you are going to adjust all the settings to your audio and volume levels for your inputs and outputs, and also how your faders work, which is pretty straightforward. You only have 4 faders, of course, on the GoXLR, even though there's a bunch of different sources you can have set up. So you're going to be wanting to set your faders to certain things that you're going to need easy access to, or you're going to be adjusting quite frequently. Obviously, for example, like the music fader, if I'm not playing music on stream, or if I'm not listening to music, and I can change that to something else. I can maybe change it to like the game volume. The one thing to mention about this, though, is if you are going to be changing your source, you're going to want to make sure to go to the lighting section and actually change the image and the text to reflect whatever the source is, just because it does not do that automatically. So you can see that I have game selected here. So currently channel 2 is controlling my game volume, but it still says it's controlling the microphone, which is not true. So just make sure you change the image and text when you do so. It also has some cool things such as the mute option, which actually changes how your mute button works. So you can mute your source audio only to the broadcast stream. So for example, if I want to mute things to my stream, but maybe not mute things to people in my voice chat, like Discord, that is an option, or vice versa. If I want to, if I want to mute my voice chat to people on stream, that is also an option there. And there's quite a few different things that you can actually change with this, which is pretty cool. Then, of course, you have your mixer on the software, which is just going to be your different volume levels for all of your different inputs and outputs, and as well as you have a headphone volume meter as well as a microphone monitor volume meter. So depending on it, how much of your own voice you want to hear, you can adjust that there, which is awesome. And then, of course, for the mixer effects sampler and system tab, you also have the lighting section, which allows you just have full control over all of the different customization features in terms of how it looks on the GoXLR, which is really, really in-depth and really, really cool. Of course, we're going to be going over that in deeper detail at a later date. Next tab is going to be your effects tab. So like I mentioned before, you can go into your different presets that you have. These are already ones that are set in the preset section, but you can drag and drop things there. Pretty straightforward. And then from here, you can actually change how your effects are applied. And this is where things get really insane and sort of what they've included, because not only is it really fun to play around with these settings right out of the box, you can actually go into the software and change how those things work. So for example, my reverb, by default, it's in a music club. So if my voice was in like a music club, but maybe I want my voice to sound like it was in a hockey arena. So I would just select that. And now when I adjust my reverb knob, it reflects that. So it would act as if my voice was in a hockey arena rather than like, a library or a music club. So it's really, really cool. And of course, from there you can, like I said, this thing's pretty in depth. You can also change all of the different stuff and all of this stuff has advanced settings as well. Same goes for echo. You know, if I want to change the musical tempo, how my echo is reflected back at me, all of the different voice effects have various ways they can be augmented and modified. Then you have your sampler tab, which we have obviously played around with a little bit. I have some recordings here, and I also made a profile, or not a profile, a folder called fart noises, just to sort of provide an example. I don't have any fart noises actually recorded, but it is really cool that you can just open up this folder, and if you right click and make a new folder, you can see it's reflected in real time. So maybe I want, you know, different musical instruments. I can just do that there. So it's really, really easy. And then I can go into other folders, drag and drop audio files into these folders, and they'll be reflected in here. And the recorded one is just sort of your default one that you start out with, but obviously you can change that around. And these are just things that I've recorded and just played around with. Yeah, obviously you can see that's just how things are. I don't even remember recording that, to be honest. You can play the selected sample before you drag and drop them into your sampler, because when they're in this library window, they're not actually applied to your GoXLR. You actually have to drag and drop them into the GoXLR sampler window to get them set up. So you can sort of see how my top left button is actually lit up now. So when I hit that button, you can see that it plays it. Very, very cool. One cool thing about this as well, we're going to be going over this in deeper detail, of course, later, but I do like how they have a cutter. So if there's only a certain portion of an audio file you actually want to play with your sampler, you can do that. So maybe I only want to play the first 3/4 of that noise. I can do that there. So very, very cool. They've just done a lot of ways to give you control over your audio. And then there's a routing tab, which is probably going to be one of your more important tabs you're going to be playing around with. This is going to be sort of more a set and forget type of thing, though. You're not going to be changing things a lot through this, but I really like how they've set this up, and it just makes it extremely easy for people to route their audio. Normally, if you didn't have a program like this, you would have to go into something like Voice Meter Banana or use like virtual cables to route things through there, and it's a lot more complicated. So this makes it really easy to just click things and route things in real time. So for example, let's say I have music playing, and maybe I want to listen to that music, but I don't want to have any copyright issues. I can actually uncheck this. So now my music is not going to my broadcast stream mix. So my stream isn't hearing my music, but maybe I'm hearing the music. So that's a really, really cool thing. It's just you can route everything to everywhere, and it just makes it pretty straightforward. You can even do things like, especially with the sampler, you can have it routed to like your game. So for example, if I'm playing a game that has some really funny audio clips or something, I can actually check this box, and now my game audio is routed into the sampler. So I can actually use that and record the game audio and then play it with the sampler and play it back, which is really, really awesome. And last but not least is your system tab, which just sort of has your different folders that you're using for the GoXLR, as well as mic setup tutorial, which the tutorial is not very in-depth. It's just a very basic idea of what the software does. You have your help and support, software updates, about section, third-party info, and analytics. Analytics is actually a little bit misleading. It just opens up their analytics policy and asking if you want to actually opt into that. It doesn't give you analytics like, you know, how many times your button was pressed or anything of that nature. And this is the general lighting for the overall, this is the lighting for the mute, push to mute button, or I guess the cough button, as well as the bleep button. So yeah, that's the software. All right, so overall, what do I think about the software? I think it's really well done. I mean, there wasn't really much to talk about. Obviously, I didn't do a deep dive on everything, but that's just obviously due to time constraints. But I had no major issues with the software. Everything ran well, everything was pretty snappy. I really like the way that the physical version reflected stuff going on in the software. They've done a great job in just including as much as they can to let the user have control over their audio, and I really do appreciate that's probably my biggest plus for the software and the GoXLR overall, is just they've given you a lot of tools in the software to have just full control, but at the same time, they've made it really easy for people who either are, maybe not super audio or tech savvy, or maybe don't care about those features and they just want to use certain aspects of the GoXLR. That's perfectly reasonable, and that's, they've done a great job in just letting people have control over that. Oh, also, I apologize. I just do realize I apologize for the continuity errors in my clothing and stuff like that. I am recording this at a later date, so that's why. But the software overall, yeah, there was no major issues. In terms of just what I would have liked to see from the software, I am a little bit disappointed there wasn't any customization over the software itself. They've obviously done a great job in letting you have customization over your lighting and your different effects on your physical GoXLR, but they haven't really included that in the software. So it would have been nice to be able to have something like Photoshop, where the different tabs and different windows, you're able to resize, move around, open up, and pull them off. Especially something like the samples tab for, rather than maybe, at least for me, it's nice to have customization over that kind of stuff. And, I know some people would like that as well, especially considering the digital version of the GoXLR that's in the software. A lot of the space around it is just empty space and it's not being used. Additionally, people like myself don't really have as much use for that viewer. So with how much they've packed into the lower half of the software, where you're doing all of the work and like customizing and all the different settings, especially when you hit the advanced button, when you expand the settings to the advanced version of that setting, it takes up a lot of room, and rather than having to use the slider on the very bottom to actually figure out where you are, it would have been nice to just have more room to play around with, so you don't have to worry about that. So you can just have everything on one section of the screen, and you don't have to do any scrolling or anything of that sort. Additionally, when it comes to customizing the software with different themes and colors, it would have been nice. Again, they've done a great job in doing that for the physical one, so it's a little bit disappointing they don't have one, different like themes that you can customize for the software, especially considering the software just has a general gray look to it. It's obviously keeps it simple and easy, but when just most of the stuff on the software is just a different shade of gray, it's a little bit bland, and it would be nice to have something a little bit with more pop, or what have you. So that's pretty much my only major issue with the software. Yeah, it ran well. Any bugs that I'm sure people have run into, they've probably done a great job in sorting that out. They're really communicative with their community. So if you do get the software and you have some issues with it, you can obviously just go to the documentation. If that doesn't work, you can go to their support line, and they're really, really responsive. Even just with a couple of questions I had with the community manager, Kick Tripod, or John, he's super great job. He got back to me within a few hours about the questions I had. So really cool. Just no issues with the software, really. All right, so what are my overall thoughts? Well, this is a good product. Yeah, it's really good, and I am actually pleasantly surprised. I was actually pretty skeptical when I first heard about the GoXLR, just because I have read about gamer chairs or like professional streamer grade microphones, and they always end up pretty lackluster, or they're just cheap. They have a lot of bells and whistles essentially to draw you in. But when it comes down to what matters, they usually miss the mark. And I'm really glad TC Helicon didn't do that with the GoXLR. They've held their end of the bargain. Even though they have catered this towards streamers and gamers, they have done an amazing job in just having a really high quality product. And for what matters, obviously just like the audio quality and sound quality and microphone quality, and how it processes all that audio is just really well done. And it definitely is, it's definitely obvious they have used professional grade parts in this piece of equipment. So would I recommend it? I definitely would recommend it for streamers who have the money. Obviously, It's $400 US, 500 plus if you're Canadian. So obviously not everyone has that amount of money to, dispose of. You can still get mixers with voice effects. Like, for example, my Yamaha AG103 had, some small voice effects that you could apply. It had, compression, EQ, and it was like $150. But with the amount of stuff they put in here, it definitely is worth it. Now, it's one of those things, though, where you definitely want to be trying to use all the different features if you can. You don't have to, but the more that you're using, obviously, the more that you're getting your money's worth. Because just on its own, if you're only going to be, recording your voice and you're not even going to be touching like the sampler or the voice effects, like you may be wanting something else. Maybe something like a GoXLR Mini, which we also have to review, because the GoXLR Mini will be actually coming out in November, and that is going to be essentially just like the left half of the GoXLR. So it's going to be much cheaper, obviously, and it's going to be a much more reasonable price, but you're still going to get the benefit of, things like the EQ and the compression and the fader sliders. You just won't get like the sampler and the effects tab. But again, like I said, if you're not using those things, that might actually be worth considering looking into, because you're still getting exactly the same parts inside in terms of how your audio is being processed, but you are just sort of cutting the fat off that you just wouldn't be eating regardless. But yeah, it was also one of those products where not only was I surprised by it, but when I actually tried to find things wrong with it, I just didn't. It seemed like they've thought out a lot of stuff, and I think it's just due in part that like they've spent a lot of time in designing it themselves, but also I'm sure they've reached out to many streamers and content creators and gotten feedback from them. And it definitely shows, like the attenuation, for example, for the noise gate. That wasn't something that was actually in there when the GoXLR first launched. So they are constantly putting out new updates for the software and making sure that they keep adding new features, and just to make it a better and better product. And I was actually asking John, the community manager for TC Helicon, about sort of what they have planned next, and they actually do have some pretty major things. They have the Stream Deck support as well as new lighting modes coming out in December, which is huge. That was one of the things that I was playing around when I was playing around with this software, was how cool would it be to have Stream Deck support, and that's on their plan list, and that's huge. That's major, because Stream Deck, as you guys probably already know, is a pretty incredible piece of equipment itself. So being able to combine that with the GoXLR means you just have even more control over your stream. And just with those two pieces of equipment, like you can do some pretty amazing things. And I'm sure that smarter people than I will actually do even more incredible things with it. They also have the GoXLR stand, which launches in January. And that's actually pretty funny, because in my previous recording, I didn't have the answer to that. And I was talking about how it would be nice to have the GoXLR on a little bit more of an incline, due to the way that some of the lighting works with the screens above the faders. Sometimes it makes it a little bit hard to see. So I think that's what the GoXLR stand is going to be used for, to be able to customize, have a little bit more control of how it sits on your desk. So that's pretty cool. So I'll actually have to look into that. So props to TC Helicon for already fixing one of the issues I had with the hardware. But yeah, all in all, I would definitely recommend this product. It's a pretty incredible piece of equipment. And if you have the disposable income to do it, it will definitely enhance your stream in a lot of different ways. Oh, excuse me. That being said, it's one of those, it's just another tool in your arsenal. It's not going to make you a better streamer, or anything of that sort, but it is going to make your audio less of a hassle. In addition to having, the voice effects and the sampler to play around with. So I would definitely recommend it to most streamers. If you are going to be, utilizing those effects and samplers, you can get a lot out of this piece of equipment. So yeah, big thanks to TC Helicon for sending us this GoXLR to review, as well as the GoXLR Mini that I'll be checking out at a later video, so make sure to stay subscribed for that. And also, just a reminder, I will be going through all of the different effects and sampler and stuff like that, and talking about how they work in a separate video also, so you can look forward to that as well. But make sure to head over to StreamerSquare.com to check out the rest of our articles, news, guides, and reviews. And best way to keep up to date is also following our Twitter, which is at StreamerSquare, and also our Twitch channel, which is twitch.tv/StreamerSquare. Really easy. We have weekly talk shows on our Twitch channel, which actually recently just got partnered. So big thanks to everyone who has been able to make that happen. We do appreciate everyone who comes out and watches those talk shows, because a lot of work gets put into them. Yeah, we have them every Monday, Tuesday. And if you do miss a show, you can follow the YouTube channel and watch all the shows there. We get all of our VODs up on this YouTube channel. As well as we do make a bunch of highlights for those shows, just in case you are just looking for something specific. Just free knowledge, free learning, can't go wrong. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you want to follow all the stuff I do, you can follow me on Twitter at Karate, as well as twitch.tv/Karate. Talking is hard. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. It was a lot of fun to make. And I will see you guys in the next one.